Welcome to Life L'Chaim. On today's show, we talk with Stephen M. Forman, author of the book Boca Daze. And first up is funny man Frank Man, one of the original Catskills comedians, who will tell us about some of his comedy heroes. We'll be right back after these messages.
We're excited to have with us in studio today one of the longtime great Catskill comedians, Frankie Man. Thank you for joining us on To Life L'Chaim.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Frank, I just want to make sure, are you comfortable?
I make a nice living.
You make a good living. Very good. Well, Frank, we're glad to have you with us, and I know you have a rich history and tradition.
You want to go back on that line?
Which one?
I'm kidding you.
Well, you have a great tradition and performance all over the world, and certainly in the Catskills. At what age did you start performing?
I started singing when I was 3 years old.
Wow. Where at?
In my house.
Did you make money? Did you get paid for
I didn't
doing
get paid. I did it for nothing. Actually, my mother belonged to the Hebrew National Society, and I did shows for them and their luncheons. And my father played the piano by ear.
Yeah, very good.
Which is very painful.
Right. You got to bang your head a lot.
That's right.
So when did you start performing professionally?
Well, when I was 9 years old, my Aunt Bessie bought me a trumpet. And by the time I was 12, I was a professional musician, played with the bands, all the weddings, the Jewish weddings, all around Newark. And then at 18, I went into the Army because I was going to go with the Glenn Miller Orchestra. So I enlisted. And when I got in, they said, all the positions are filled. I said, well, what about me with Glenn Miller? I'm sorry, Frankie, you have to go into the infantry. So I went into the 8th Army, and I formed a little band in the Army, and we played in Leyte, in Japan, and we traveled. Then when the war was over, I came home and moved to New York City to get into the big time.
Right.
With bands like Joe Marcella, who you never heard of. But I worked for Les Brown, which you probably heard of.
And his band of renown.
And today I'm working for less money.
Right, very good.
And then I hung around with all the comedians because I became the band leader at the Raleigh Hotel up in the Catskills in South Falls, Oregon. And I met a lot of great comedians. I hung out with Buddy Hackett, Alan King, Milton Berle, and they thought I was cute and funny. So I remember.
And this is without having an act. You were just cute and funny.
Yeah, just my own natural sense of humor, with my Jersey voice, which I don't have anymore.
Right.
But in comedy, sometimes it's good to have a trick voice. Because if you notice, most comedians, Jerry Lewis doesn't talk that way all the time. He has a regular voice. And then he has Dean's voice. Hey, Dean. He uses a trick voice.
You went to high school with...
I went to school with Jerry Lewis. His name was Joseph Lovitch. We both got thrown out of school.
Right.
And what happened that we were...
What high school was this?
It was at Weecloak High School in Newark, New Jersey. And what happened, one day we were in the hallway and we were talking, and everybody in my class sounded like Jerry Lewis. It was a Jersey accent.
Right.
It was a little higher pitch than my regular voice. Hey, Dean, you know, it was that kind of voice. And we got caught talking in the hallway, and they sent us down to the principal's office. And we said, gee, Mr. Hertzberg, I'm sorry we were caught talking in the hallway. And Mr. Hertzberg said, well, that's all right. You just have to stay after school. So
discipline has changed a lot since then.
That's right.
You're also an impressionist.
Well, I kind of pay tribute to some of my favorite comedians like Lenny Bruce, Buddy Hackett, Alan King, Jerry Lewis. I do a Jerry Lewis song in the act,
right.
Which I first saw Jerry Lewis sing in Weecloak High School. We were 16 years old, and he was at the music review, and they asked him to sing. So he got up and he sang, "Weep no more, my lady, sing this song for me," and so forth and so forth.
He must have attracted all the ladies with that voice.
Oh, definitely, sure.
Who's your favorite comedian of all time to impersonate?
Well, my favorite comedian actually was Lenny Bruce. Mm-hmm. He was the first one that actually was arrested for using four-letter words. And
amazing.
Lately they threw his case out of court. But what good is it? He's dead.
Right.
So, but He was the first one. Then Richard Pryor came along, and I loved Richard Pryor. And I loved George Carlin, he's also a derivative of Lenny.
Right. Well, give us a little, I know you do George Burns and Jack Benny and a whole host of characters.
Give you a little Jack Benny.
Give us a little Jack Benny, please.
If I told you once, I told you 1,000 times, I'm only 39.
God, you look just like him with those glasses on.
George Burns. I went out and bought big glasses.
Right.
Got a whole cigar. I just want to thank you for this wonderful interview. And, you know, whenever you see me, I'm always holding a cigar. You know why?
Why?
At my age, you got to hold on to something.
Very good. Very good.
I worked with Bob Hope, and when I worked with Bob Hope, I opened for him.
Where'd you work with Bob Hope?
We did a benefit for Parkinson's at the Fontainebleau Hotel. And I remember Bob saying, you know, Frankie, if you only had a mustache, you would look exactly like my favorite sidekick, Jerry Colonna. So I say, well, I went out and bought a mustache, and I put it on, and I'd like to give you my impression of Jerry Colonna singing. On the road to Mandalay, where the flying fishes play. Oh, the dawn comes up like thunder on the road to May. I'm going to hold it. You all applaud.
I was going to wait till we get a defibrillator if we needed one to get
Mandalay.
Very good. If you turn that mustache upside down, do you do Groucho Marx?
Groucho Marx, that's the funniest word I ever heard. I love all the Jewish comedians.
Right. And you still perform today?
Practically every day.
Every day, correct.
I do shows at the Fontainebleau, the Diplomat, Century Village, all the condos. And once in a while I'll do a show for the older people. See, years ago, most of the Jewish people that came down here, they all lived down in South Beach. Then they moved up to Miami, then they moved to Fort Lauderdale, then they kept moving and moving and moving and moving. And what happened? They find themselves back in New York.
Right.
But I perform for the old, the young, the bard and the blue.
Right. Frankie Man, a pleasure, a true pleasure to have you with us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Anytime you need me, just give me a call.
Will do.
And I'll come over.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
With us in studio today, we're thrilled to have with us author Stephen Foreman. Welcome to Life L'chaim.
Thank you. It's very exciting to be here.
Stephen, this is your third book, Boca Daze, in
Right.
your trilogy. Tell us a little bit about this book and how it's similar or different than your previous two, Boca Knights and Boca Mournings.
Well, each book has the same protagonist. I created a character very similar to my own in mental attitude. He doesn't look like me. He's 5'6", 165 pounds, which is definitely not me. But we share similar thoughts. He's the guy who says everything you wish you had said in a stressful situation, does everything you wanted to do in a stressful situation. You finish up and say, I should have said that and I should have done this, and you didn't. Well, Eddie does it all. And at 59 years old, he was Boston's most demoted, promoted policeman, real renegade. And at 59 years old, he's been shot, he's been beaten up, he's a mess. Arthritic, and he can't perform to his own high standards, so somebody gets him a job in Boca Raton as a golf course ranger, and it was like dropping an atomic bomb in the middle of the gated community. He never saw a gated community, he didn't understand them, he didn't know how to relate to the people, and we go through that in a bunch of crimes down in Boca where there's more sharks on land than there are in the sea,
Right.
and it went through 3 books, and Boca Daze is just an extension of Eddie solving, you know, even more timely crimes. You know, as years go by, he gets more and more timely.
You say promoted and demoted. Why the juxtaposition with a character?
Well, he
like
does a
this?
great job, and he captures lots of people, but he doesn't always do it by the book. And you'll see it. It's very good because when he comes down to Boca, he's the same man. He doesn't change, and the comedy in the book really comes from Eddie's reactions to things and the way he relates to things. We can take the most serious circumstance and put him in it, and it becomes funny, although it still carries its message. So he gets demoted because he doesn't go by the book. He gets promoted because he gets so much accomplished.
And I know a lot of people who, when they read your books, they'll go, well, were you a cop? You know?
Oh, no, I was never a cop. I knew some.
Right.
But I was never a cop. It seemed like a good place to start. Because if you're writing a mystery, you wouldn't write it about a fish salesman. You know, what does he have to do with crime and all that? Eddie could, when he goes to retire, he can spot crime. I mean, you know, he's had this background for all these years, and he was Boston's best. So when a crime occurs, like the first crime he encounters, he's going home after quitting from being a golf course ranger because he was supervising 4 women playing for the club championship, and as he said, they refused their right to remain silent. So he quit, and on his way home, he goes to a Publix, and he sees a woman passing a counterfeit $100 bill. Now, you wouldn't have noticed it, and I wouldn't have noticed it, but Eddie did. So he follows her, and it leads to the Russian mafia doing counterfeit in an ecstasy ring. So only a guy like him could pick all these things up and, you know, and turn it into an adventure.
So the great story is in your background, you were a very successful businessman who one day, I'm sure it wasn't just one day, but over a course of time, you weren't a writer per se, but you decided to become one. Where did that genesis begin, and how did you actually put it into motion?
Well, ever since I was a kid, I thought I was a writer. You know, all of us are born with a skill, and we're lucky if we get a chance to use it. Mine was I always had the ability to string sentences together and write readable material, even when I was a little kid. I mean, I think the first thing I wrote was a birthday card for my mother. And she said, "Isn't he cute? He could make it rhyme." You know, well, I wasn't really cute. You know, at my size, you're not too cute. But that was the beginning of it. And then I got into school, and the only thing I really excelled in was writing. Got to college, I used to write term papers for. Don't repeat this, but I used to write term papers for everybody.
Statute of limitations.
Yes, oh, it's over. That's right. And it was just my thing. But I also, when I got out of college, had a great affinity for business. People ask you, you know, how did you succeed? And I said, the reason I succeeded is not that I was busy, but I learned how to be productive and make money. And I never wasted my time doing unimportant things. You know, I was able to identify what the right way to go was. So I was doing well enough that I didn't have time for writing. I mean, what I was doing at that time was every bit as exciting as any novel I could write. I traveled the world, I went internationally, I was in a lot of foreign countries that I never dreamed of being, and did some wonderful things that I'm very proud of, and I really didn't want to leave. You know, it was just, you know, having too much fun.
You were in food marketing, import-export business?
Yeah, we imported frozen seafood and packaged goods from the Far East, only because the contacts, as years went by, the contacts were in the Far East. It wasn't something that I planned, but we were the first company in America to do imitation crab meat, which you see everywhere now. Well, in 1978, it didn't exist in America. It existed over there. I saw it. I recognized the opportunity. I went to Japan at 30 years old. I signed a contract with the world's biggest fishing company. They thought I was insane, that I wouldn't sell this product in America, so they gave me any contract I wanted and said, "Go ahead and do it. You'll fail." And it became a phenomenal story for the 80s and 90s. It became the fastest growing food category in the 80s and 90s. It's slowed down since then because everybody understands it, but it was a great adventure. You know, every time you go on a sales call, people said yes. I mean, when do you get that in your life, you know?
Right.
So who had time to write? I was living a business dream.
Right.
But you know, as time goes by, I kept reading books and saying, I could have written this. I could have written this better. And of course, I never did. A big problem I had was technology. you know, I wasn't a typist, so I'd write something and I'd hand it to a typist, they'd give it back to me, there'd be more whiteout than sentences on it. They made a lot of mistakes. They edited it for me, saying, well, you shouldn't have written it that way, you should have written it this way. So I wasn't even getting my own material back, and I gave up. Then came the word processor, and life changed. I went back to high school and took a typing class, and I can type and talk to you at the same time and think it's just a whole different world. And that's when I said, I better get serious about this. I think I was 65 years old, and I said, you know, time is of the essence. You better get going.
Right. We're going to take a break now, but when we come back, I want to talk about a little bit about that, the difference between the matter-of-fact world and business and the very creative process that goes into writing a book.
Okay.
Okay. We'll be back right after these messages. We're back with author Stephen Foreman, whose latest book, Boca Daze, is available along with his previous two books, Boca Knights and Boca Mournings. Stephen, again, welcome to Life L'Chaim. When before the break, we were talking. I wanted to ask you about the difference between the matter-of-fact world of business that you've been very successful with, and how you became an author, and talk about your trilogy.
Well, the business world, things happen quickly. In the literary world, not so quickly, because it took me 2 years to write the first book. I was still very active in my business. I would write between 4 and 6 in the morning. So it's a lot of patience, and then when your book comes out, you know, the publisher's not just waiting for you, he's got other clients, so by the time your book comes out, you get 2.5, 3 years, and then nobody knows who you are. So I found it a much slower process than the regular world of business, and I also found it a little bit more rewarding because you write one book and all of a sudden you're either super intelligent or you're a hero. You know, I signed books the minute my book came out, but after 45 years in the food business, nobody ever asked me to sign a fish. They didn't care how many I sold. But this was exciting to everybody, so right. The perception is very different. You know, just to go off the beaten path, this signature business is very funny, these book signings. I just want to share one with you. I was at the Sawgrass Mall, and I wasn't really speaking. I just sat behind a stack of my books, and a woman walked up to me, and I don't know how old she was, but she was getting along, and she had very thick glasses on, and she was squinting at my books on the table, and she said, "Did you write this book?" And I said, "Yes, I did." She said, "If I could see, I would buy this book, but I don't see so well." I said, "Come on, don't you want to help out a starving young artist?" And she says through her thick glasses, "Yes, I would. Where is he?" So you can't get that in the world
right.
of business. It was just so priceless. I keep repeating the story. It was so wonderful.
Very good. Well, you have, the titles are interesting, in which you have Boca Knights with a K, Boca Mournings with an M-O-U-R-N, and then Boca Daze, D-A-Z-E. How did that come about?
When I got to Boca Raton the first time was 1992. I came here just to get away from winters.
You're from Natick, Massachusetts?
The Boston area, you could say. And I just came down here. We were a skiing family. We stopped skiing, and I came down here just for a change of pace. And I was like Eddie Perlmutter. I had never seen a gated community. I didn't understand them. The retired people, I was still working, so they were a mystery to me. And why are people who are retired walking at 4 o'clock in the morning? I don't get it. Why does somebody steal bagels from the table that's free bagels? I couldn't quite get to the program. And actually, I'm the man who, after a couple of months, said, "This is the land of the used to be." I named it. Now in the book, Eddie names it, but I said the land of the used to be because no matter who you ask, you say, "What do you do?" "Well, I used to be a doctor," or "I used to be a lawyer." Nobody was anything.
Right.
One guy even said he forgot what he used to be. And I became the hypercritic, which you'll see at the beginning of Boca Knights, but the more I stayed here, the longer I stayed here, the more I began to appreciate that to be a used to be, you had to have been somebody special. And I think that people were forgetting how special they were. And I wanted to tell the world this story, that they didn't just pop up here, you know, and be in the middle of a Seinfeld joke. They were very special people. It was time to talk about them.
Mm-hmm. So Eddie, who's this retiree who moves to South Florida, to Boca Raton, has all these ailments. but somehow exerts himself as a hero in the area.
Well, he hasn't got serious ailments. He's got, bumps and bruises and arthritis, but he's still a super cop. He goes to Publix and he sees a counterfeit bill. He goes to different areas and he encounters crimes. Now, in Boca Knights, the names came from the fact that Eddie saved a couple of women in distress being attacked by some thugs. And a local newspaper reporter said, "Who is this Boca Knight who's come here to save us?" So Eddie is now a hero. Mm-hmm. And he's in Boca Knights explaining to people that anybody can be a Boca Knight. You can't all be super like I am and go fight and do that, but you can make a phone call, you can do a protest, you can refuse to accept things as they are. And the theme of the book became, it's never too late to be a hero. And it's Eddie reminding those people that they can still do it. In Boca Mournings, it sounds like somebody died, but that's really not the case. We're not mourning death. Eddie is mourning the fact that he isn't who he used to be. He can't be a knockout puncher anymore. He has to go for decisions. And everybody does, and that's the message that I'm giving. You cannot be who you used to be. You've lost your best friend, and you can mourn it. The best friend is you, right, when you were at your best. But you can't stay that way, so re-identify yourself and be something special all over again. And Boca Daze is a summation of the whole, and it is basically, it's never too late to get involved. And we have Eddie getting involved with things you wouldn't dream of, the homeless people, and Bernie Madoff, and all these diverse characters. So you've got, be a hero, re-identify yourself, and it's never too late to get involved. And if you put all these things together, you come up with a very special person.
Very good. And where do you get some of the motivations for the particular stories that you have in the book?
Out of the newspaper. In Boca Raton or all of southern Florida, everything you want to know is in the newspaper. I have Bernie Madoff is no secret, and we had a few years ago 4 guys who walked into a donut shop and blew it apart with shotguns, a very serious offense. So what I did is I took that story and put Eddie in the middle of it. What would have happened if this character was there, and what would the resulting story have been? I do a big bit on Liberty City and the Florida riots, and then I meet the characters and put Eddie in that situation in 2004.
Right.
So you can have. I once heard a very famous author say, "All the nuts come to Florida." Right. He said O.J. was found innocent. He moved to Florida. An astronaut wanted to drive across the country in a Pamper. She came to Florida. And he's a very funny author, and you can find so much here. It's just beyond belief. And then just insert your
We have about 30 seconds left.
Oh, no, I want to go longer.
What's your next project?
My next project, I'm going to try a serious book. It's called Small Giants, and it's about 3 families. The heads of the family, the first generation in the book, barely escapes genocide. And it's not strictly a Jewish book about the Holocaust. We have one of those in there. We have gypsies in there. We have a black family who one person made a last-minute decision and saves them. And then what happens to these 3 stories out of 17 million?
Excellent.
So,
well, when you get that done, you'll come back and join us.
Yeah, I'll be much older, I think.
In the meantime, I just urge everybody to get it. It's a great read. It's great entertainment. And you'll be done with it in a night, I guarantee it. So enjoy it very, very much. A real pleasure.
That is a pleasure. Thank you.
That's it for this edition. For more information on our show, please visit us on the web at tolifeLachaim.com. I'm Lee Lazerson. Thank you very much for joining us. And to life, l'chaim.